growing into adulthood, all we got in the beginning is our word. We learn to talk. We have a speech. Many of us have different dialects, different. We have different ways of saying things. Sometimes we can say the same thing, but saying it in a different way. But that's just the way we are. That's the way God made us. And God designed us this way so we can be specific in our own right. And he gives us these different words and this different speech patterns so we can talk to each other, so we can communicate. That's why I wanted everybody to come together a little bit, because we are a community church. And God wants us to commune together. He wants us to be together and do things together. There are times in our lives where we can sometimes use words in a negative way. We talk about people. We talk about ourselves. And we bring ourselves down. Now, most people know that I work at the Dorchester County Detention Center. And in my job, we have about 200 plus inmates. So these guys, they don't come out that often. And when they come out, they're out for an hour at a time, at the most. Sometimes it's extended to an hour and a half. But when they're out, they're enjoying themselves, and they're doing what they need to do outside of their cell. It is my job, and the reason they hired me is to make sure they go back. That's one of my primary duties. Make sure they go back. Sometimes it's by any means necessary. Now, you know, if you've been cooped up in a small box for a long time, when you're let out, you ain't trying to go back that soon. No, you're trying to have your fun. So these guys are not trying to go back that soon. So we have a few teenagers that we have in our custody. And as I'm going around doing this job, making sure everybody go back in their right cells, one of them said, "You know what? You're a slave catcher." I said, "A slave catcher? What are you talking about? You're a slave catcher. You're running around rounding everybody up and putting them away, just like a slave catcher. That's just what they trained you to do, huh?" I said, "Okay. So let me tell you something. If you're calling me a slave catcher, what are you saying about yourself? You're calling yourself a slave. And is that how you want to be remembered? As a slave?" So many times we allow these specific words to dictate who we're going to be. And God did not design it that way. This young man did not realize that he was, in turn, trying to demote me by calling me a slave catcher, thinking it was going to hurt my feelings, but in turn was calling himself a slave, making himself lower than what he was created to be. Granted, he's locked down. Granted, we're telling him everything he's supposed to do, when he's supposed to do it, and how long he got to do it, but he's not a slave. And that was the message I was trying to get across to him. He's not a slave. And it's just one of those things, like we just tend to have that mentality that we cannot be better than what we are. And God definitely created us better than that. Amen. So everything we say, whether we're saying it to each other, we're saying it to ourselves, it has power. Our words have power. Proverbs 18:21 says, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue." So your tongue can either breathe life or kill something. And it's up to you to decide what you're going to allow it to do. You have control over your tongue. God gave you your tongue for a specific reason, but he also gave you control over it. He could have decided that you would be like a robot and decided that he would control how you speak, but that's not community. How can we be free if God was going to dictate how we were going to speak? But what he wants us to do is to decide for ourselves how we're going to speak, how we're going to live our lives, and how we're going to train our children to do the same. Because it actually starts with them. It starts when you're a child. The things you hear going on around your house, the things your parents say to you. It could either elevate you or bring you down. And it's up to you to decide what that's going to do. Now, not to keep talking about my job, but there's another guy that I have in jail. I'm not exactly sure of this particular story, but it's been said that his father was also in jail. And it's been said that because his father's in jail, or actually in prison, in maximum security, he wants to strive to be like that. If this is true, and this young man has that mentality, do you think that maybe somebody told him one day that he was either just like his father, or was going to be just like his father? So now he has internalized that. Now he thinks that he can't be any better than an inmate. He thinks that his life is going to be that because that's his father's life. And it's been spoken over his life that his life is going to be the same. We have to change that around. We gotta talk to our kids and let them know that they can be anything they want to be in this world. There are 1 billion plus occupations in this world. All you gotta do is choose one. Some of us got 2, 3. It's your choice. But all you gotta do is choose one and make your life with that. For example, Brother Dasheen sitting back there. I don't know if y'all know, but he's the guy that put together our programs. He is great at art and graphic design. He has decided that that was the path he wanted to take. Growing up in St. George, it's not much here. We all know that. It's not much here. It's not much to offer the youth. We don't even have that many great schools that's close to us. All of the colleges are at least an hour and a half away. But Darsheen, as well as many other young kids here, have decided that they're not going to allow the situation here to dictate what they're going to do in their life and what they're going to be. Amen. He knows what he wants in his life. He knows that he wants to elevate. He knows that he's not going to spend the rest of his life in St. George, or maybe he will. I don't know. He might be a mama boy. I don't know. No, I'll just mess with you. But I'm saying, these kids have young minds. Very impressionable. Very easy to dictate what they're going to do. All you have to do is say to him, this artwork is horrible. You should not do this. It's going to filter into his spirit. And he's going to feel like, I can't do it. I can't make it. So that's why when you got these kids drawing these little cartoons, and you can't tell if it's a cow or a person, you tell the child, oh man, that is nice. That's why you do that. Because you want to encourage him, to be something. Young man Dion, back there playing that game. I see you. This guy, I know he's into a lot of after-school activities. He's in the martial arts. He has decided that that was something he wanted to do. His parents encouraged it. Every time I see Dion, every time I come to the church and I see Dion, the first thing I do is I slap him in the back of the head. It's just something that I do. I always slap him in the back of the head. So whenever you get to that point, Dion, where you have learned what you learned in your martial arts, forget that I slapped you in the back of the head. I don't want to be the first person that you drop kick. I'm just saying, I don't want to be the first person. But anyway, I was on Facebook last night, and my brother shared the link of his son playing the violin. His son graduated from high school about a year or so ago, and he started playing the violin when he was in elementary school. And I didn't realize that he would actually take it and keep it like he has done. He was online. He has a video on YouTube where he's playing the violin and he's playing one of the pop songs. This young lady named Katy Perry. I don't know her music, but he's playing the music, and every note that he was hitting sounded just like the song. So again, another example. He decided what he wanted to do and what he wanted to be, what he wanted to use his gifts and his talents for, without allowing whatever his situation was to dictate what it was going to be. Now, there's something we need to talk about. So if this offends anybody, forgive me ahead of time. But it is a strong subject. It's a subject that's strong to me, really close to my heart. But along with this young man calling himself a slave, we ourselves are calling ourselves other derogatory terms. And I don't know what it is. It's like, as black people, we are definitely one of the most creative races on this planet. We create things. We sometimes make things out of nothing. That's how a lot of our music was born. That's how jazz music was born. You know, getting together a whole bunch of people to play instruments and to create some music out of nothing. So there's a word.
Come on, baby, go with it.
When I was young back in the day, I would look up this word in the dictionary, and it was defined as an ignorant person. This word has been a word that has been derogatory against black people since we can remember, since slavery. They were using this word to kind of demote us. So they would say, nigger, come over here, or nigger, go over there. When we came up, we decided with our creative selves to take this word and try to make it our own, thinking that we're going to change the spelling. Instead of adding an ER on the end, it's just an A on the end. So now it's a different word. It doesn't mean the same thing that it meant 100 years ago when they was calling us this word. So now, when we're saying the word, we're speaking to fellow black people, fellow brothers and sisters, and we're calling them that word. Like it's a term of endearment. But oh, let a white person say it to you. It ain't the same story. So if we have taken that word and made it our own, how is it that it still means the same thing when a white person say it to you? That's because the word has not changed. It's still the same thing. I agree. I agree. It's hateful. It's hateful language. And I decided, maybe about 15 years ago, if I cannot say that word to anybody, no matter what color, no matter what age, no matter what nationality they are, then it must be not a word that I'm supposed to use. Maybe I need to take that word out of my language. I stopped cursing about 15 years ago, and I stopped using that word around the same time. But the word is still in the music. I admit it. I have listened to the music. I grew up on the music. But it has to stop. I think we need to take that word and bury it somewhere and not allow it to come back up. The point I'm making is there's power in words. God said in the beginning was the word. What you have in the beginning is your word. So, in verse 1, it says, in the beginning was the word, and it continues, it says, and the word was with God, and the word was God. So, if you may, turn with me for a few seconds to Genesis, chapter 1. Verse 1, again. Because in Genesis, it says, in the beginning, God created the heaven and the earth. verse 2 says, "And the earth was without form and void. Darkness was upon the face of the deep. And the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the waters." The Word was with God in the beginning because God's chosen tool for creation was his speech. He spoke. He could have used anything he wanted to create. Nowadays, we use our hands to create. We use our minds to imagine things. He spoke things into existence. If God can speak a world into existence, separate heaven from the land by water, just by speaking, what prevents us from speaking stuff into existence in our lives? What holds us back from that?
There we go.
Because God said, let. Ocean started flowing. He said, let. And in that ocean, creatures started swimming, brought them to life. He said, let. People started walking on the earth. He said, let. Those same people started forming families and communities and churches, just like this one. He said, let. They said those same people decided to form businesses. They decided to build houses, buildings, structures, towns, cities. Just from a simple word, let. He spoke it into existence. There was nothing until God spoke. God was walking around in nothingness. Darkness was before him. He approached the darkness. The darkness was stubborn. Just like many of us, just like me. We have darkness in our lives. And that darkness is stubborn. It does not want to change. It does not want to be anything different. It doesn't want to do anything but be dark. You are going to be what I am calling you to be. Let there be light. The light came out of the darkness. The light was good. The darkness was still there. He didn't take the darkness away. It's still there. But what he did was he separated them. So the light could be on its own, and the darkness could be on its own. And he does that in our lives as well. We have the darkness here. The way we talk about ourselves, calling ourselves niggas, calling ourselves slaves, that's darkness. It's in your life. It's in your head. But what God wants to do is speak to it. He wants to bring the light out of that. Every young man that I mentioned today, they have had some darkness in their lives, in their head, maybe thinking they could not do it, maybe thinking that they can't be anymore, but that light shined, and they decided to embrace that light and to do something different than what people were telling them they can do. Embracing that light, separating that light from the darkness. Then in Genesis verse 2, chapter 1, verse 2, it says, "And the earth was without form and void." So as this darkness is in us, it's like we don't have a form. It's like we don't have a shape. And God wants to shape something in your life. Something that is going to have meaning. Something that is going to have purpose. The things that you do today reflects, and it's going to mean something for people tomorrow.